Echeverry marked by O'Carl. Echeverry knifing through. Unbelievable.
What's up, everybody? I'm Andrew Wiebe, and this is the MLS Round Table presented by Target. We are talking number 10s, and this is our third installment. We've already discussed what makes a number 10 special, who the current crop of number 10s are in MLS, and now we are on to the history books. So guys, let's jump in our time machine and talk about the guys who got it done from 1996 onward. First, some introductions. Alejandro Moreno, Venezuela international and longtime MLS forward. Kyle Martino, MLS veteran, does his thing now with NBC Sports on the Premier League. Sacha, Kljestan, you of course know him well. So many assists over the last 3 years in MLS. And Matt Doyle, the armchair analyst here at MLSsoccer.com. I'm just going to put it out there for you guys. Let's start with the old school. Go all the way back to 1996. There's some incredible names here to talk about. Wiebe, Echeverry, Cienfuegos. Take your pick. Who's the guy in the day that you really looked at?
My favorite was Valderrama. I one game, and you're going to laugh at this, knowing how I played. My coach asked me, we were in Colorado, to mark Carlos Valderrama because he said, "You're quick, Kyle. You know, just get close to him and just upset him all day."
Who was the genius that came up with this idea?
We're not going to use names. No names. He just had this incredible instinct for where pressure was coming from. His first touch took him away from it every single time. His first touch was perfect every single time. He had the ability, while he was walking, to make you fly by him. He did everything with his head up. He had his pass already picked out. And if he needed to make you look silly before he did it, just to get a rise out of the crowd, he'd do it. I mean, that guy was absolutely incredible.
And I just want to say, I think Valderrama has weirdly ended up kind of underrated worldwide because he didn't have a great European career. And that seems like the only way that we judge players now, which is, I think that's another show.
Yeah.
That's
different round table, bro.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But I mean, this is two-time South America Player of the Year, and guys couldn't touch him. I've never seen anything like it.
He's a genius.
And even when guys touched him, a part of the game that perhaps people don't appreciate of Carlos Valderrama is how strong he was. I mean, the guy was built like a brick house, and it felt like, well, look at the way he's jogging. Barely jogging. You're thinking, of course I can get around him, and yet you couldn't get close to Carlos Valderrama.
In Southern California, you have to imagine Mauricio Cienfuegos was a guy that you paid close attention to?
I mean, I love Valderrama probably the most of all the old school number 10s from the early days in MLS, but yeah, I watched Cienfuegos a lot when I was young. You know, my dad took us to Galaxy games, and it was just interesting to see a guy that was so little but move around the field and not be bothered by the big defenders. And it's funny, when I first came to the under-20 national team, I had never worn studs in my life because you just don't wear studs in Southern California. And Siggy made sure that everybody had a pair of studs. And he said, if it rains, everyone has to wear studs. The only player who doesn't have to wear studs ever was Cienfuegos because he never slipped and he could move around the field and do whatever he wanted. But I love Cienfuegos. I loved watching him play.
Another thing about Cienfuegos, there wasn't a harder worker than Mauricio Cienfuegos, having been his teammate for a couple of years. This guy would show up for work, do the training, and then bring other guys, younger guys, with him and run his mini training session after you were done with the regular training session. And when he's pulling you aside, you're almost like, please, Cien, don't call me Cienfuegos. Please don't. Tanquecito, come over here. And I'm like, no, come on, Cien, we already gone 2.5 hours. Dude, what are we going to do? It's like, no, you got to learn how to finish. Okay, thank you, Cien. Confidence booster. But what a professional he was.
We had a U.S. Open Cup final when we won in Columbus. We played L.A. It's last play of the game. We're leading, and Cien gets the ball on the end line, and I'm sprinting to catch up with him. And he throws a fake that literally gets me off my feet jumping, and I slid almost into like the advertising boards at the end, and he crossed the ball far post, and someone missed the header, and I was like, oh, yeah, thank God, because that was all my fault, but Cien is insane.
It feels wrong that we've gone this far without really discussing Diablo, because as great as Valderrama was, as great as Cienfuegos was, Diablo, to me, is the guy who defined the first 5-6 years of MLS. It was his team. That was his team, and you could argue to this day that it's still the best team that's ever played.
I mean, left-footed.
One second,
playmakers.
Marco Echeverry. For those of you who Diablo.
I didn't even think we would ever have to say who that is.
I just had to throw it out. He did some celebrating back in the day.
I was at University of Virginia at the time when they were thriving, and it was Moreno and Diaz Arce, and I would go, and Bruce would let me come train with them. And he would show up, and I remember he had really bad foot problems, and he would have to pack his foot, and it took forever, almost like a boxer taping his hand. You'd have to pack and tape his foot into those predators. And then I'd think to myself, I mean, how is he gonna be as good as I know he is? But then he'd show up, and his touch was like perfect every single time. And Etcheverry had one of the best sort of fake shot cross cuts that had you just in the front, you know, 2 rows once you fell for it.
You talk about being the guy. There's a guy that when he walked on the field, you knew. There was no question who was the guy for DC United. And it was the mullet, the left foot,
Remember
whatever.
the nose thing?
I mean, he's got the whole thing.
The breathe right?
I mean, he had everything, and you game plan against guys like Etcheverry and Valderrama.
I have to mention Peter Novak got that sort of treatment. He's a legend if there ever was one in this league. So good.
He had that change of pace, and he could dribble at guys, and he was a good goal scorer too. Peter was one of the best.
Did you feel the same about Preki?
I think Preki, the way he finished the ball and the final plays, if you just look at Preki's statistics, are ridiculous.
The thing is that you would overplay Preki. You're like, well, there's no chance he's gonna come inside. I mean, yes, you can go to the right-hand side. I'll give you that. Even overplaying, you still get cut. And you're like, what?
Some of these guys, it feels like they can play forever, and they do, Preki included. I think of guys like GBS, Guillermo.
Guillermo was the best.
Yeah, well, his ability to find spaces was one thing. And then the other thing is you knew the game was slower for him than it was for everybody else. Because everybody else was going around in 1,000 miles per hour, and Guillermo, it almost felt like he was just kind of like, I'm going to get the ball, and I'm going to play the ball over there, and you're going to go over there, and then Alejandro's going to crash the box, you're going to cross it to Alejandro, we're going to score, and we're going to win. Part of it is the fact that a guy like Guillermo Barros Schelotto was in so many important games with Boca Juniors, in so many key moments, key times where he had to come up with a play.
I'm going to throw 2 underrated names at you, I think, that we haven't really talked about, Christian Gomez and Amado Guevara.
I loved Guevara. He had a smooth composure about him, where it wasn't necessarily he was beating guys off the dribble and there were no tricks. He was just so smooth at taking the ball from danger and bringing it into open space and bringing guys into the game. I mean, that sounds simple, but it's kind of the guys that do that really well that impress you so much, and he was one of those for me.
Other guys going to public office. Cuauhtemoc Blanco is the name I'm thinking of right now. He was one of the guys when I first really started watching every game in this league that I knew that if he was on Fox Soccer Channel, whatever it was, I was going to be tuning in. What's his legacy?
I mean, here's his legacy for me. We've gone down a list of guys, I mean, some of them the greatest in the game, that have actual moves named after them.
You know a guy is great when he can get away with doing a 20-yard run-up to take a penalty. You have to be special. You have to be special.
And white boots.
Yeah, you know, or 20-yard run-up to do a free kick, and then he puts it over 90, and you say, okay, all right, fine.
You just thought, oh, I could just take the ball from this guy, but like Valderrama, you couldn't get close to him, and he was so strong on the ball, and it looked like if he took his shirt off, he would look like my dad, like a 45, 50-year-old guy.
It used to be that like the number 10 was the guy that wore like the colorful boots. Like it was like the guy that could get away with the flare boots. Mm-hmm. But now, like, because there's so much flare out there and everyone's got a different color boot, there's this return back to black cleats that like the creative guys are wearing, which I'm loving. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna end it right there. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Matt. Thank you for joining us for our MLS Roundtable presented by Target. I had a blast talking tins with these guys. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Go back and watch parts 1 and 2. In 1, we go over what makes a tin so special. In 2, who's the best number 10 in MLS today? Once again, thanks, Target. We'll see you next time.